should be played at high volume. This should be played at high volume. This should be played at high volume. Preferably in a residential area.
The following thoughts on Hoppe Hour do not represent Cox Media Group or its sponsoring. Anything you hear may and will be used against you. Thank you. Voted as best local podcast in Tampa Bay by the Creative Loafing.
What up? What is happening? This is Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, and I've been a big fan of this guy and his show for 10 years now, since they were on Free FM. From the Junkies on 106.7 The Fan in Washington, D.C., Eric Bickel is on the phone line. What's up, dude?
Hey, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. I grew up a radio geek where when there was the whole Free FM format, I listened to it in Chicago. So I would expand and go to the library and look up other shows. And I loved Don and Mike, your show, Opie and Anthony. So it's weird to say, but you guys were one of my influences, man. I've been listening to you guys for a decade now, so I'm really pumped to get you on.
Oh, thank you. I'm embarrassed. I've got you on my Bluetooth. I'm driving downtown to catch the GW Hoops game tonight to see my buddy Mike Lonergan, and I'm trying to turn off the little lady that's talking to me. Hold on. I want to get rid of the voice on the direction.
Isn't that voice annoying? Like, I wish they would give us some, like, nice, sexy voice talking to us, like maybe some girl in porn. She's the most bland voice ever. I always want to turn her off, you know?
How do I get rid of it? I want to get rid of it. Oh, my God.
I know there's, like, features where you can get, like, Homer Simpson or Peter Griffin, because I cannot listen to that whatsoever, dude. Like, it drives me nuts because she has the most bland, demanding voice, and I don't like women bossing me around in overall. You know what I mean?
Of course. So what's going on your way?
I work at 102.5 The Bone in promotions. It's like edgy talk radio like you guys do and like Free FM did. And I do this award-winning podcast on the side, and I interview people on radio, and then I rant about the news. So basically, I'm influenced by the FM talk format of you guys, Opie and Anthony, Howard, Ron and Fez. I'm basically a radio geek. Like, it's not healthy how much I like radio, Eric.
Yeah, well, good. But I am too, and that's frankly kind of the era that I grew up in. I mean, Free FM was in the middle of my career, but we grew up. Me personally, I grew up in the whole era of guy talk, and
yeah.
I grew up listening to Don and Mike back in the day, if you want to get kind of geeky about it, when they were on WAVA in Washington, D.C. in the morning, and they did their morning zoo. I listened to that, and then I'll never forget, it was probably my senior year of high school or my freshman year of college where I stumbled onto the Howard Stern show. When Don and Mike moved to afternoons and Stern took over in the mornings around here, and those are the shows I grew up on, that era, that kind of radio, and we try to still incorporate some of that to the best we can, in the sports talk format, because unfortunately that kind of radio is largely dead.
So how does it feel that you guys are the one replacement, basically, that survived replacing Howard, because Rover bombed, David Lee Roth bombed, and then Adam did well, and now he's doing the podcast. So how does it feel that you're the one show that was able to succeed in replacing a legend like Howard?
Right. I mean, obviously we're proud of that. But I always felt like we had a built-in advantage, to be honest, because we were, I don't know how many years we were into our career at that point, maybe 10 years or so into it, right? So
yeah.
We had a built-in audience. I always felt like there would be a place for us. I mean, whether or not we would absolutely, crush it, I don't know that we knew that, but I always thought that we would succeed. But in fairness to the others, we had a built-in advantage because the audience was familiar with us from what we did in the evenings, and we had 2 years of experience in mornings going against Howard. So, I always felt like it would work. But I am proud of it, believe me. And all those other guys are super talented. Adam's obviously doing an amazing job. So, they have nothing to be ashamed of, that's for sure.
How nerve-wracking was it when the Free FM format flipped and you guys had to essentially mix in a lot more sports? How did you guys have to change up the show?
We didn't really that much change. I mean, we have gotten a little bit more sports-centric, obviously. It's just kind of natural. Look, at the end of the day, sports was always the root of our show. That's what separated us back then. And what's interesting is that's what separated us in a guy talk format. And now in the era of sports talk, that's what enabled us to survive. That's what enabled us to blend in with everyone else. So we didn't really have to change that much. We can't, as radio has changed, right, you can't be nearly as risque as you were 10, 15 years ago. I mean, we did things 10 years ago that we can't even possibly put on the air. We can't even put them on the website, even post the podcast.
What did you guys do that was so edgy back in 06?
Certainly back in a few years before, in the early 2000s, we did things with, strippers and guy talk radio and had interns doing various, things. And the way we describe things, just absolutely there's no way that could air. And frankly, our language has changed, as a culture. Things that we got away with, the muffled, words that you would use under your breath to kind of break somebody's balls. That kind of stuff just doesn't fly anymore. You can't say that kind of stuff. So, a lot of things have changed, and as it's gotten less risque, it's made it easier, frankly, to just kind of hone in a little bit more on a safer harbor, which is our passion for sport. But we still try to do an edgy sports show, to be honest with you.
Do you listen to your competition in town to see what they're doing and maybe see how you can improve, or is your competition not even on your radar? I've always wondered when it comes to radio hosts.
Well, I can't speak to how others do it. I mean, we're for the most part one-trick ponies, to be honest with you. I mean, we are who we are. Everybody else does their thing. We've been around too long to mimic or copy what other people are doing. You know what I mean? We just have our own style. The reason why we've been successful is because we have amazing chemistry. I'm not afraid to say that. But there are plenty of other more talented broadcasters, and probably most sports broadcasters have more knowledge at this point than a lot of us. Our shtick is chemistry, and people enjoy hearing our banter. That's our thing. And so it doesn't even really matter what the topic is. That's the approach we've always taken.
Do you think some sports shows might be very jealous of you guys since you guys are so unconventional, and maybe these other sports shows feel like they deserve a bigger shot because they know more about sports?
I don't know. I certainly have a sense that other people are probably upset. I don't know if they're jealous, but upset that they are more knowledgeable and they take it more seriously, and we have more fun with it.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't doubt that at all. I've always had that kind of sense. And frankly, I think there are people out there that are funnier than we are. I think there are people out there that are more knowledgeable than we are. But again, our shtick is our chemistry. We have a unique chemistry. Three of us have known each other for 40-plus years. Nobody else can say that. We met Jason when I was in high school. So, now I've known Jason for, I don't even know, I can't even count that high anymore, 27, 28 years. No one can touch our chemistry. So, that's really what it's all about for us. And I'm sure that there are other shows that are frustrated that they're more knowledgeable and they might even be funnier, but our little package seems to work. And, that's all we got. So we're gonna use it,
Now, do you guys ever get into fights off air, or do you guys ever get into big arguments? That it has to be weird when your friendship is basically being on the radio. Do you guys ever get into big arguments?
Oh my God, gotten into colossal arguments through the years, massive. I leapt over to the table and tackled JP a couple of years ago on the air. We've had massive arguments off air that, of course, absolutely. And frankly, before, 20 years ago, we used to do a lot more stuff all together socially. But you can't. It's very different. You can't just have a professional relationship and then you have a social relationship, do stuff with each other all the time. It's almost impossible. Those that can do it are very rare. You have to kind of have you got to have some separation. So, our relationship largely at this point is professional. It's fun. We love working together, but we don't necessarily socialize like we used to. It's just you can't do. You need some separation. Plus, we all have families now, and everyone's doing their own thing.
What did you guys used to do back in the day? Would you go to clubs, go out drinking? How would you guys bond back when you guys were younger?
Well, I mean, we were never really big club goers. Our generation, we were, college drinkers, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And then, frankly, when we would first all got married, we would go out as couples and stuff. But, I just turned 46. We're all in, that same age, 45, 46. We all have kids, teenagers. That really starts to dominate your life. You also don't have the time to do that other stuff.
What's it like being a parent? Like, how much does it change where you go from being able to do what you want to then having to take care of this being that you helped create? Like, what's that like, dude? I've always wondered.
Are you not a parent?
No, I'm not. I'm 22.
You're only 22? Oh, you got plenty of time. It's the greatest thing ever. It changes your life. It gives your life meaning. I think it's the greatest thing ever. Honestly, instantly, as soon as that baby's born, literally within seconds, you feel the responsibility, the weight of the world, but all of a sudden, it gives your life meaning. Like, you now are responsible for this person and to see them through. There's nothing like it. And there's nothing like the satisfaction of seeing your kids, succeed and do well and grow up. And it's amazing. It's awesome. I wouldn't change it for the world. It's what it's all about, frankly.
What type of parent are you? Are you more lenient? Are you more hard on your kids? Like, how does this work? Like, do you grow over the years as a father? I've always wondered with anybody who's a parent.
I don't know if I'm a great example. I mean, I'm freely willing to admit that I'm kind of winging it as go along. There's no perfect blueprint for it, right?
Yeah.
So, for me, my wife and we're both intelligent people, but you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants. You're trying to make the best decision that you can every day. I know some people that have a real basic fundamental philosophy and they can stick to it like that. We fly more by the seat of our pants and try to just make good decisions on a regular basis. But I'm probably a little bit more on the lenient side, to be honest with you. I wish I was a little bit more hardcore. I wish I could toe the line a little better at times. But they're so darn cute. You want them to be happy. Obviously you have to have rules. But I wish I was probably a little bit more stringent. Like Lurch is pretty tough. He's a hard ass.
Oh yeah.
He's definitely a hard ass, and I'm not by any stretch. But you can't be your kid's best friend either. So, it's a balancing act. If anybody acts like they know it all, I'm telling you they don't. But they might be better than me, but they don't know it all.
Now, would you say that you let your kids listen to the show? Because we know guys like Dahl and Howard wouldn't let their kids listen to the show because it was edgy. How do you describe your job to your kids? Do they listen to the Junkies, or do you try to guard them from the show?
No, I don't try to guard them. And frankly, kids today have so many things that they have access to that and kids are so unimpressed by their parents usually. They don't care.
Yeah.
They listen for a few minutes in the car on the way to school or to the bus or whatever. But they don't, I try to get them to watch our television show because sometimes it's good and funny, and I might say, hey, watch a segment, and I could barely get, 2 eyeballs. I got 3 kids. I could barely get one of them to watch for a few minutes. They're completely unimpressed. They don't care. So I don't have to even worry about that. I don't have to really worry about that at all. But has it changed in the sense that maybe sometimes I try not to be quite as risque, or maybe don't go quite as raunchy on something that I might be able to otherwise get away with because I know I have 2 daughters at home? I think sometimes that factors in. You know, so, I mean, all of those things affect everything. When you're doing a radio show, at least the way I do it, you're constantly monitoring as you're going along. Who's listening to this? Who am I offending here, potentially? Who could hear this? All right, I don't know, are my kids in school? Are the friends going to tell them? Is the teacher going to hear this? Someone in my church? You know, you constantly have to be aware of the consequences. Because one thing I have learned is if you do a show, it's probably the same thing is true of the podcast, too. If you talk about something in particular or somebody in particular, they will hear about it.
Oh, they will. I just got my first girlfriend 2 weeks ago, and her parents, and she listens to every second of it. So now all eyes are on me, dude.
Yeah, you're screwed. I mean, you know, it's fine, but you just have to know that everything you say is being monitored. And even if she's not listening, her friends will listen.
Yeah.
Or a friend of a friend will listen. I mean, there's just no way of whatever you're saying not getting back to whoever you're talking about. It always happens.
Has there been a time where you slipped up and it's too late to push the dump button and you said something that your kids, your wife, maybe your wife's friends or anybody where they got mad at you? Was there a time where you slipped up on air?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's happened. I've had to put out a million fires through the years, constantly. Sometimes you roll the dice and you just think it's worth it, and then you know you can just put out a little fire. But other times you say things and you don't quite I'm pretty conscious of what comes out of my mouth, but you don't quite realize other people don't necessarily understand that you're exaggerating or you're just doing it for a laugh. You're not really that offended. You're just, it's humorous, but you make a little more out of it. Some people don't get that. I mean, I've had to put out a lot of fires through the years. Absolutely.
Isn't it weird how some
Everybody
people...
has.
Yeah, because it seems like some people, Eric, don't get their radio at the end of the day is just entertainment, and some of these listeners are just trying to find ways to be offended. It's that whole fake outrage in 2016. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's a tremendous problem with our culture. I have no regard for faux outrage. I mean, zero. But by the same token, I want to keep my job, so... It's a real fine balancing act between sort of keeping your integrity and saying things that you really believe in, but then not crossing the line to the point where the company won't be able to back you up. It's a real problem. It's a real infringement on freedom of speech and being able to do, honest radio at times. It's really, really difficult. There are certain issues that you really have to dance around delicately, and it sucks, but that's true. I wish it was more open. I wish it was more the way it used to be, where people were less offended, but it's just not. It's the culture we live in. People are dying to be offended.
Do you think that's because of social media and things like that, where now people have an outlet like the keyboard where they can hide behind it and speak their mind? Is that maybe a reason why people get more offended now? It's more immediate.
I mean, you say something 2 seconds later, it's retweeted, and everyone's hearing it. But I also think that people overvalue social media too.
Oh, yeah.
Like the impact of it and how important it is. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just sort of spontaneous, spur of the moment conversation. And when people give it too much weight, they're making a big mistake.
Yeah.
It doesn't really mean anything, but sometimes people give it way too much power.
Do you ever get mad at the people who troll you? Because I worked on a show in Cleveland and the fan base went from liking me to hating me. And then I got the job here in Tampa. And at first I let the trolls get to me, but now I'm beginning to get more thick skinned where it's like they would never say it to our face. So how do you approach people that say some mean things on Facebook or Twitter?
They've been doing it for us, on message boards before that, our whole career. They've been trolling us in the sense that, they've been basically predicting our demise, and I would get so offended, and it would really bother me. And to this day, when people when someone says bad stuff about you or that you stink or, whatever, it does affect you, but I just try not to I try not to really give them that interaction that they're looking for the most part. And frankly, there's a great feature now where you can mute people. So you don't need, like, if you block them, sometimes I feel bad about blocking them, but you can just mute someone.
Oh, it's amazing.
That's the best response. Yeah, just mute them. Make them go away. Takes 2 seconds, and then the headache is gone.
Because
it's really the best way to handle it. Every once in a while I'll engage, but there's nothing more off-putting than someone getting into a Twitter war with someone. You just look like an idiot. And I've done it. And I know what you look like. So you'll almost never see me engage in that.
I think a lot of these wars online are like set up or scripted, like the one with Wiz Khalifa and Kanye West, where Amber Rose came in and said finger in the ass bitch or whatever. I think that was all planned out. Like, what an insult. It made her look worse. Like, don't you think that most of these things online that happen are usually a PR move?
They probably are. I didn't think that was an insult. Who doesn't like a little tickle down there? I didn't think that was a big deal.
It made her look worse. It made her look like an idiot, if anything.
Yeah. I didn't think it was a big deal. It didn't, But I get caught up in enough of the Kardashian,
Really?
Yeah, I get caught up in enough of that I try to not get, overwhelmed by it. No, it's just everywhere and you can't avoid it. So I try not to delve into it too much. I can honestly say I've probably watched a total of 20 minutes of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. But it's everywhere. You can't, if you like the world of entertainment at all, it's just become overwhelmed with reality stars and reality television. It's actually disappointing. The quality of entertainment on some level is so great. Some of these shows that we have on like FX and HBO and, some of these programs are just phenomenal. And then the other extreme is just the nothingness, the Real Housewives, the Keeping Up with the Kardashians of the world. It's just embarrassing.
Why do people get into that? Do they think that it's real and it makes them feel good to watch other people act dumb? Because I've watched probably 4 minutes of any Kardashian show, and I swear to God, I lost some points off of my IQ, man. It is mind-numbingly awful. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think sometimes, frankly, there's a little curiosity just as to, like, wow, look how these people, like, they live lives that no one can relate to.
Yeah.
I mean, who drives a new Lamborghini every 2 months? Or who gets the Rolls Royce in suede? Like, what is that? I don't even know what this is. So sometimes there's just kind of a curiosity and like, wow, man, people really are living like this? This is insane.
Now, speaking of them, how did you guys cover the whole thing with Lamar Odom a few months ago? Since you guys are edgier, did you talk in depth about it? Or since it was so annoying, did you guys not talk that much about it? So what was your coverage like of him almost dying at the Bunny Ranch?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I actually thought that was really, really sad.
Me too.
And I thought that was worthy of discussing because you're talking about an NBA star, somebody that we grew up watching. We told the story many times of seeing Lamar at the subway in New York when we were up there to cover a U.S. Open one year. And so, I mean, we followed that guy's career, from high school. So that's the way we looked at that more as just a sad thing than any sort of. I didn't really attack the guy. I just thought, wow, how incredibly sad. And, like anybody else, like, what is an NBA guy with that kind of financial willpower, that kind of charisma and charm? What's he doing in a whorehouse? Like, what an idiot. No, the other thing is, frankly, I don't get the drug culture. I don't get that. I guess there's a whole group of kids out there now think it's the greatest thing ever to smoke weed. I mean, I guess whatever floats your boat, but I certainly don't want my kid growing up and being a pothead. I don't see any sense in it. But then when you go that extra step, though, and you get into the world of heroin and coke and that harder stuff, and you've really lost me because I do not understand the appeal of it.
What would happen if you caught your kids doing weed or ecstasy? How would you react?
It would not be favorable. I can assure you of that. I would have a bad reaction to it. I just don't. I was raised from a family where that's just not. That's just not how you live your life. You don't want to. I mean, it's hypocritical on some level because I don't mind a social drink, but I'm also not promoting that with my kids either.
Yeah.
They can find out for their own as they get older. But yeah, I don't want my kids out smoking weed and doing ecstasy and all that other stuff. I actually don't. I want my kids to have clear heads, and I want them to reach their potential. And anything that gets in the way of that, of their motivation or their ability to think clear and make sound decisions, I'm not going to be happy about it, to be honest with you.
Now,
I don't know how I'll react, but I won't be happy.
how did you get into radio? Was it a thing where your parents influenced you, or maybe they were in radio? Like, how did the Junkies begin?
Our story is pretty simple. We did a cable access show for fun. I had my future mother-in-law said she saw a political show on the air with local kids, and she said, you and your friends should do a cable access show. This is, you guys should do the same thing with sports. And I said, you know what? That sounds like a lot of fun. So we went down there, found out anybody that's paying taxes could have a show. All you have to do is take a class on how to run the equipment. And I'll never forget, as we were taking the class and they were teaching us how to run the equipment, they said, what do you guys want to do? And we said, well, we want to get a show together, a sports show, and maybe someday somebody will pick it up and we can work in radio, or we could be on, home team sports. And they said, that'll never happen. Nobody ever makes it out of here. And we kind of used that as motivation. And we did the cable access show for a year. We had our wives and girlfriends and parents running the cameras and everything, doing the sound. And about a year into it, we said, you know what, it's not that bad. We did like one or two a week. We said, it's not that bad. It's kind of funny. Let's send out tape and have maybe like a media critic will like it, write an article in the paper about it, and then maybe somebody will call us. And that's exactly what happened. We sent out 3 tapes, one to the Washington Post, one to the USA Today, one to the Washington Times. Dick Keller from the Washington Times is the only one that responded. He loved it. He wrote an article about us, and that day, WJFK, the mighty WJFK, called us and said they had rights to the Redskins and they were looking for some sports programming. Would we be interested in coming down there and talking to them about maybe working on the weekend? And we were like, are you kidding? Absolutely. Went down there, had a nice conversation with them. They liked us. They said, would you do a demo? We said, sure, we'll do a demo. We did the demo. A couple weeks later, they said, you know what, that didn't suck. You want to go on the air next Saturday night? I said, are you kidding? Absolutely. We did the show. They said, well, that didn't suck. You want to come back next week, do it again? We said, absolutely. And we kept doing it until they finally gave us the contract. And ultimately, we replaced the grease man on at night, and off we were.
Do you think you guys did so well because you guys were friends beforehand? Because that's very unusual that you guys would go into a top 10 market and do so well. I feel like a lot of radio guys would need more practice. So do you think your long friendship was the key to the success?
Of course. The only reason why we were able to do it is because we had a unique chemistry that no one else had, really.
Yeah.
And you can't get our chemistry from just pairing people together. You might be able to get it eventually, but we had built-in chemistry that was a head up on the competition, and that was our calling card. We were terrible broadcasters. We're not even that good broadcasters today. We're just not. So that was our calling card. We had chemistry, and I knew this, if I could say it without being, like, I knew people enjoyed hearing my group of friends at a party, talk, hang out, break each other's balls. I knew that people liked hearing us interact. We had our own sort of language. We had our own sort of energy. I just knew when they gave us a shot, I actually knew it was going to work.
What made you think it was going to work? Was it just because you guys were friends, or were you just in the zone and you knew this was a time where you could not fail?
No, I just knew that that our conversation was entertaining.
Yeah.
I just knew it. I knew that we also had, if they let us do it the way we wanted to do it, which was let us, really break each other's balls and interact with each other the way we did with college, the way every group of friends has their own, dialect or inside jokes. If they let us do that, I knew it would be successful, and they did. I just knew it would hit.
What is the craziest moment you guys have ever had in the 20 years of the radio show, the Junkies? What is the craziest moment that comes to your mind?
Oh, there's too many. I mean, I'll say this. I'll say this. When we were nationally syndicated for 3 years on Westwood One Radio, the story that still blows my mind the most is Jason went out to we were on in Detroit, San Francisco. There was a period there we were on in New York City. We were on in Minnesota, Texas, 40 different markets or so. But we were never huge, but we were on all over. Jason went out to Tiger Stadium, and he was sitting like halfway up the last row. And he was having a conversation with somebody at the game. I think it was the year Tiger Stadium was closing. And the guy in front of him said, "Hey, are you Lurch from the Junkies?" And that, to me, was mind-blowing. Here we are, this kind of nighttime show based in D.C., and Jason's just there as a fan watching a game, and somebody in Detroit recognized his voice. That was pretty insane.
Isn't it so awesome when people recognize us? Because I got recognized when I worked on a show in Cleveland, and now down here because of Mike Kelta and Drew Garabo and my podcast, I'll get recognized at events for The Bone for being on the air there and for doing my show. So my point is, how awesome is it, dude, when people come up to us and say they listen to our show? Because to me, that's one of the biggest motivating factors.
No, it's great. And it just means that you're having an impact, and people dig what you're doing. It's everything. And then you always want to remember, treat those people with respect, because those are the people that are your lifelines. They're your lifeblood. They're the people that allow you to do what you do. And it's the coolest thing ever. So no matter where it is, no matter if you're in a urinal, it doesn't matter. Always be cool. Treat them with respect. Let them know how much you enjoy hearing that they enjoy listening to your show, and I think that's the way to handle that. It's the coolest thing ever, and don't ever get too jaded to that. I mean, I'm jaded to the point where I don't necessarily love all these phoners and talking to, athletes over and over unless they're particularly appealing to me, but never get jaded in terms of the people that enjoy your show. Never take that for granted.
Now, when you guys do these interviews that sometimes you don't want to do, what is the key to making it unique and making the most out of it? If there's a few interviews you don't want to do. You have to try to find a common. You have to find something that's intriguing and interesting to you, and bring an energy to it. When you go through the motions and you just ask the same questions that everyone else asks, that's just going to be boring. And also, frankly, if you're trying to set them up and you're trying to get them to say something awful, that's pretty hacky and old too. So it's a fine line. I would generally say try to stay away from interviews that you're not that. If you're not into it, the audience is going to feel it. Yeah.
So I would generally stay away. If I had my druthers, there's a lot of stuff that I wouldn't do. I wouldn't book it. I'd rather us just banter amongst the four of us. But I'm only one vote. So you got to find something in there that you can glom onto and bring an energy to it, because when you go through the motions, the audience absolutely feels it.
Now, before I let you go, where do you want to see your show in the next 5 to 10 years?
To be honest with you, I would be thrilled if we were doing the same thing. There's nothing greater than being kind of part of the morning dialogue, the morning routine for people, you know, in a major market like Washington, D.C., and feeling like you're a part of the lifeblood of the community. It's awesome. I love local radio. I don't aspire to, I mean, this is my dream job. So if we're still doing this, that'd be amazing. If we have some other projects on the side that we can do, like Table Manners and the Football Central show we did with Comcast, if we can continue to do projects like that in addition to it, that's awesome. But at the end of the day, our bread is buttered doing radio and specifically doing morning local radio in Washington, D.C. And as long as we're doing that, we're hitting a home run.
Now, for people like me and other young kids that want to go into radio, what's some advice you have for us, especially in 2016 when it's more hard to get into this business?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think you're doing all the right things from what I understand. Just do it. Get out there. We did cable access. Now with the internet and with podcasting and everything, do a podcast, do a show. Don't wait for anybody to give you anything. I always tell people, you do it. What do you want to do? Do it. Start it. There's no excuse. And then when you do it, you got to do it to the best of your ability. Find whatever it is that you're interested in, whatever your passion is, and do it, and go all out, balls to the wall. Book the best guests. Prepare. Do it. Treat it like a professional broadcast. And that's all you can do.
Now, that pumped me up, man, because a lot of people sometimes think of a podcast as just a side project, but I treat this show as if it would be radio ready because I've wanted to do this for too long that I'm so focused on making it work. You know what I mean, Eric?
Yeah, and you should. Treat it like a radio show. You absolutely should, because that's what it is. It's your radio show. And, you know, when you hit on some shows that catch and it goes viral, you'll be amazed at the number of people that access it. I mean, people can access it and listen to it all over the world. It's an unbelievable opportunity for you and for anybody else out there to have a voice. Embrace it, go for it, and frankly, as long as you're doing that, you're successful. It doesn't matter, you know, if you're ever ultimately picked up on the radio or television. As long as you're pursuing your dreams and you have an ability and a way to get it out there and have people access it, you're doing it. And anything else above that is gravy.
Now, where can people hear your show online and on the radio?
Oh, my God, I wish I knew. TuneIn Radio, all of those things. God, I don't even know all the websites anymore. It's like they always change. 1067thefandc.com, junksradio.com. Follow me on Twitter. I send out links. EB Junkies. Just Google the Junkies, and you'll hit us. You can listen live. You can watch us live on watchthejunkies.com, where you can watch the video feed. Of course, if you're in the D.C. area, you can listen on 1067 The Fan. So, you know, just Google that. You'll find a variety of ways. You can listen. The podcasts are huge. We have, you know, millions of downloads of the podcast. So, yeah, anybody in the world can access this show.
Well, dude, thank you for being on the show, man. I've been listening to you guys for 10 years, so this was a lot of fun having you on Hoppe Hour, Eric.
Hey, thank you, buddy. Keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Eric. Have a good rest of the night.
All right, you too, pal. Thanks, buddy.
All right, bye.
Bye.
And that was Eric Bickel from the Junkies on 106.7 The Fan in Washington, D.C., and there's a lot of guys in radio that influenced me, that made me want to go into this business. But when the Free FM format came out 10 years ago, I would listen on 105.9 Free FM in Chicago. And I liked that type of edgy FM talk radio. So I would go to the library after school back in 6th grade and Google it. And I really got into 106.7 Free FM. Don and Mike, Opie and Anthony, Ron and Fez, the Junkies, Big O and Dukes. So if you would have told me 10 years ago that I would have Eric Bickel from the Junkies on, I would think you're crazy. That is my goal. I want to be the next outspoken FM talk show host for my generation. I want to entertain you guys. So if you're a fan of the Junkies and you want to hear more of Hoppe Hour, it's not hard. It's not rocket science. All you have to do is go to the app shop for Google Play or for the iPhone. Search up Hoppe Radio, Hoppe Radio, and you can hear all 78 of my interviews since July when this show began. Also, go to my website, RyanHoppeRadio.com. That's RyanHoppe Radio.com. And tweet at me at Ryan Hoppe Radio. This has been Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, saying peace out.
Hoppe Hour. Hoppe Hour.